take a deep dive into real cases, the evidence, the court records, and the stories behind the headlines. Welcome to Crimes with Chronicle. The Shanquella Robinson case will stick in our minds forever. But before we talk about court orders, remand documents, or that Cabo 6 member that allegedly recently came forward with new information regarding the case, we first have to go back to the beginning, because nothing about what's happening now makes sense unless you understand how a birthday trip left one of the members of the trip unalived and turned into an international legal battle. Now, in October of 2022, Shanquella Robinson, a 25-year-old businesswoman from Charlotte, North Carolina, traveled to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico with a group of people who we won't call friends, let's just call them associates. Now, the trip was meant to celebrate a birthday. It was supposed to be fun, relaxing, and memorable for all of the right reasons. Instead, less than 24 hours after arriving, Shanquella was dead.
A Charlotte family is trying to figure out what happened to their 25-year-old daughter. Shanquella Robinson's parents say she took a trip to Mexico last month with a group of friends. Her friends made it back, but she didn't. They say she was found dead. They were told what happened, but they tell me tonight they're not buying it.
Her family was initially told that she died from alcohol poisoning, but that explanation quickly fell apart when a video surfaced showing Shanquella being physically assaulted inside the villa. Soon after, Mexican authorities conducted an autopsy and ruled her death a homicide, listing the cause as severe spinal cord injury caused by blunt force trauma. From that moment on, this was no longer just a tragic vacation gone wrong. It became an international case involving two countries, unanswered questions, and a growing demand for accountability. The people who traveled with Shanquella that weekend later became known online as the infamous Cabo 6 after her death, all returned back to the United States. None of them returned to Mexico to face questioning, and no one was arrested in the U.S. The absence of movement is what fueled years of frustration and public confusion. Now, one of the most significant reasons federal authorities in the United States said they could not definitively rule Shanquella Robinson's death as a homicide under U.S. law comes from conflicting autopsy results. Now, the initial autopsy performed in Mexico concluded that her death was caused by a severe spinal cord injury and atlas luxation, meaning extreme trauma at the top of the spine where it meets with the skull, suggesting violent injury rather than simple alcohol intoxication. Mexican authorities treated this as a violent death and issued an arrest warrant based on those findings. However, when Robinson's body was returned to the United States and a second autopsy was conducted by the Mecklenburg County Medical Examiner, the results were very different. The U.S. autopsy found that the spine was intact, contradicting the Mexican report, and there was no skull fracture or spinal cord injury. Instead, the U.S. exam found a hematoma of the forehead consistent with blunt force trauma, mild swelling of the brain, which is cerebral edema, and signs of hypoxic ischemic brain injury, which means the brain did not get enough oxygen, but does not specifically point to the same mechanism of violent trauma the Mexican autopsy described. The U.S. examiner ultimately classified the death as undetermined because neither finding definitively explained the cause in a way that met the legal standards for a homicide. Because of this discrepancy, the Mexican report saying severe spinal trauma and the American report not finding the trauma at all, federal prosecutors said they did not have enough consistent, conclusive evidence to pursue criminal charges or rule the death as a homicide under U.S. law. Now let's get back to the Cabo 6 at the villa. Now, hours after Shanquella was relentlessly beaten, they decided to call for medical help. There was a doctor from the American Medical Center in Cabo San Lucas who responded. According to the police report, she found Shanquella disoriented, dehydrated, verbally unresponsive, and appearing intoxicated, and was told by the people who left her there that she she had simply been drinking too much. The doctor advised that she needs to be taken to the hospital, but the group insisted she didn't have insurance and she needed to be treated at the villa instead. At around the same time, one of Shanquella's travel companions called her mother in North Carolina and told her that Shanquella was sick from alcohol poisoning and that a doctor was on the way. But here's where things get strange and raise more questions. In the police report, there is no indication that the people with Shanquella told the doctor about the earlier fight. The altercation captured on video that later emerged online showing Shanquella being violently assaulted. Neither did they tell the authorities that she had been found on the bathroom floor. Eventually, Shanquella's condition worsened. Later in the afternoon, she began having seizures. Her breathing became difficult, her pulse dropped, and a 911 call was made around 4:20 p.m. by one of the group members. At approximately 4:49 p.m., the doctor and one of the friends began administering CPR after she said that she could no longer feel a pulse. Paramedics were called and performed extended resuscitation efforts, but were ultimately unable to revive her, and she was pronounced dead at around 5:57 p.m., according to the police report. After Shanquella's death, the group left Mexico late that night or early the next morning and returned to the United States. They brought Shanquella's luggage and belongings back with them and reportedly told her family that she had died of alcohol poisoning. It wasn't until anonymous calls and emerging information that her mother began hearing that there may have been a fight before Shanquella's death, and a video soon began circulating showing an assault on her inside the villa. Details that they never shared with the attending doctor or initially with authorities. So that brings us to present day. Now, recently, according to the Crime Junkie podcast, one of the Cabo 6 members called in and told them that he had some information regarding what happened that infamous day in October 2022.
At least one person there claims that he genuinely did not know about the fight. We actually talked to one of the men who was on that trip. We're going to call him Mike because he doesn't want to be named. And Britt, this is a huge deal because no one from this trip has ever spoken to the media, anonymous or not. And according to Mike, he never even talked to police. So what I'm about to say may even be news to them. He told one of our reporters that he was the last to join the group in Mexico.
I was not there till the next day. I didn't see a fight. I didn't know it was a fight. I didn't know it was a video. I didn't know they did any harm, anything. I went in there and told it was alcohol poisoning, so that's what I helped her as.
So he says that he got to the villa Saturday afternoon.
Oh, yes, I left on Saturday. The trip was from Friday to Monday, October 28th, 29th, 30th. 31st going home. Didn't even make it there.
This is after they'd already called the doctor to look at Shanquella. And he says when he got there, she was vomiting, she was disoriented. And he is the one who laid her on the couch, and he is the one who stayed to help.
So I instantly go to her, put on her side, get a bag, and all that. So I'm sitting right next to her the whole time.
And at the time, he had no idea, he says, about the fight. None of the friends even told him. So he spent hours helping to take care of Shanquella, thinking that she really did just have alcohol poisoning.
I went in there and told it was alcohol poisoning, so that's what I helped her as.
Because that is what they are telling everyone. And he says that he found out about the fight with the rest of the world when the video came out. But he has more pieces to the puzzle that might fill in what led up to that fight. Mike says that Dejanay actually called him at around 3 o'clock in the morning, the night before the infamous fight video. She was crying. He said that everyone in the villa was drunk, and Shanquella and Dejanay apparently had gotten into some kind of heated argument. And in the midst of this, a glass broke, which cut Dejanay's foot. It was accidental, but it did not help the situation. So Mike says that Dejanay was just beside herself and told him that she wanted Shanquella to leave. She doesn't even want her there for her birthday. Now, Mike says he managed to talk Dejanay down and let Shanquella stay. And that was the last that he heard about their spat. But he suspects that that was the beginning of whatever the fight was that took place 4.5 hours later. He said that he was one of the friends to visit when they got back from Mexico, visit the family. And he did tell them everything he told us. But he says like they were already suspicious that someone wasn't telling the full truth and they didn't really want to hear anything from him.
And did he tell the police?
No, like I said, like he hasn't wanted to talk to police at all. But if some other stuff that he told us is true, stuff that we couldn't verify enough to report, the answers police might be looking for, I think, would be on people's phones and in their call logs, which I'm assuming they collected.
If the glass in the foot is a true story, then it kind of explains why they were so standoffish with Shanquella when she recorded that video the first night they got to the villa.
Yeah. It don't take that long to get naked, hoes. Where y'all at? She told me I'm gonna keep it hot. You gonna keep it hot? What?
I'm gonna keep my hot business that I don't want to wear because it's cute as fuck.
They, what Go said, they croup.
The one that's like mediocre is in my check-ins. I can't wear them.
Now, I just wanted to note that we are not for sure who exactly contacted Crime Junkies, but the only person that fits the description of what they're saying is Nazir Wiggins. But again, we do not know that for sure. But what we do know is that Shanquella Robinson's mother got tired of waiting. She turned to the civil court system in late 2024 and filed a wrongful death lawsuit in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, which is where she and her daughter lived. Now, the lawsuit was not a criminal case. It was a civil action meant to seek accountability, answers, and damages for what the family alleges was a preventable and violent death. Now, the complaint laid out how Shanquella traveled to Cabo with her friends and how she was later found unresponsive, and how the story given to her family at first did not match what later evidence revealed. Now, in that initial civil filing, Shanquella Robinson sued the individuals who were there with Shanquella on the trip, commonly referred to as the Cabo 6, as well as the FBI and the U.S. Department of State. Now, the lawsuit alleged wrongful death negligence and emotional distress against the travel companions, and claimed that federal agencies failed to properly investigate or protect a U.S. citizen abroad and failed to provide requested records. Now, the civil case named the people who were physically present with Shanquella in the villa and focused on their actions, omissions, and inconsistent accounts of what happened in the hours before her death. Public responses from the Cabo 6 were limited, but at least one member of the group, Miss Dejanay Jackson, who later changed her name to Amani Green, formally responded in court. She denied all allegations made in the lawsuit and raised procedural defenses, including arguments about improper service and timing. Other members of the group did not give detailed public statements or sworn explanations about what happened, and none of them have been criminally charged in the United States. Importantly, no one from the group has publicly explained under oath why the fight occurred or why medical personnel were not informed about the earlier altercation. Now, after lawsuits was filed, the federal government removed the case from state court to federal court because federal agencies were named as defendants. That move temporarily shifted the case into the federal system. However, in 2025, a federal judge dismissed the claims against the FBI and the U.S. Department of State, ruling that the federal government could not be sued under those circumstances and that the Freedom of Information Act claims were filed in the wrong court. Once those federal claims were dismissed, the only claims left were state law claims against the individual defendants, also known as the Cabo 6. Now, because all remaining claims were based on state law and all remaining parties were residents of North Carolina, the federal court ruled that it no longer had jurisdiction to keep the case. Now, in January 2026, just a few days ago, the judge ordered the case remanded back to Mecklenburg County Superior Court, where it originally began. That remand did not end the lawsuit. It simply returned it to state, where the civil claims against the travel companions can continue through discovery, depositions, and further litigation, meaning the Cabo 6 is not off the hook. The focus shifts directly to the Cabo Six now. This civil lawsuit against them is active again at the state level, meaning the court can now move forward with standard civil litigation procedures. This includes discovery, where both sides can request documents, phone records, messages, travel information, and other evidence related to the trip. It also opens the door for depositions, where the Cabo Six can be required to testify under oath about what happened before, during, and after Shanquella's death. Because this is a civil case, the Cabo Six are not facing criminal penalties in court, such as prison time or things of that nature. However, they can face serious civil consequences if the court finds them liable, including monetary damages, judgments, and long-time financial exposure. Unlike criminal investigations, civil cases also have a lower burden of proof, meaning the family does not have to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, only that it is more likely than not that the defendants are responsible for the harm that was alleged. Now, this remand also removes federal protections and delays that previously slowed the case down. In state court, defendants cannot rely on federal immunity arguments, and procedural defenses become more limited. If the case proceeds into full discovery, inconsistencies between what the Cabo Six told medical personnel, law enforcement, and Shanquella's family could become central issues. Any sworn testimonies given in this civil case could also be preserved and later referenced if criminal authorities in the United States or Mexico revisit the case. Importantly, being compelled to participate in a civil case means the Cabo Six may no longer be able to remain silent in the way they have so far. While they still have the right to invoke the Fifth Amendment in certain circumstances, doing so repeatedly in a civil case can carry strategic consequences and may be viewed negatively by a jury. State court proceedings often bring far more public scrutiny, and the facts developed in the discovery can reshape how the case is understood. All in all, the fat lady has not sang yet, and just because this is a civil case does not mean it's over for the Cabo Six. What I need to do is hear from you. What do you think about everything going on with the Cabo Six and this alleged individual that arrived to the villa late and now has something to say? Leave a comment, and you know how we do. We'll talk about it down below. Talk to you guys later. Bye. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell so you don't miss out on any of my new episodes.